Keeping up with technology is hard. There's too much information to keep track of. It's time for a simple and straightforward approach. It's time for IT Insights.
I'm excited to be joined by Kyle today, who happens to be one of my favorite people at HPE, and I really don't say that to everyone.
No, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Kyle. What I wanted to talk about a little bit today is what makes HPE unique in this market for Azure Stack.
So there are probably 7 things that set us apart from everyone else, but I have a short attention span, so I'm going to cover 3.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so the first one is data security, protection against cybercrime, and that is becoming a huge issue because it keeps getting worse. So last year, cybercrime costs went up to $11.7 million for a breach. That's a fortune. Ironically, the budget that companies allocate for cybercrime is going down though. So you can't expect customers are going to come up with a new budget line item to fight this.
Right.
But 2 other facts for you, because I know you like data points.
I do.
Is that it takes on average less than 48 hours for a cyber criminal to get control of a data center, and they go undetected for more than 100 days.
Wow.
So it's like rats nest in the walls of your kitchen and you don't know they're there.
Right.
So what we've got is something called the silicon root of trust. And what this does is when the system is manufactured, it takes like a fingerprint of the firmware. Every time that system ever boots, it checks the fingerprint.
Okay.
And if the fingerprint doesn't match the firmware, alarms go off. Not literally, but the user is notified there's been a breach and it resets to the correct firmware. And in addition to that, anytime you want, like every 24 hours or 2 months or whatever you want, it'll check the firmware to make sure that it's still intact. So what it does is it protects customers from somebody planting bad firmware that it could expose their whole data center to lots of really bad things. So security that's available only from us.
Okay.
Nobody else has done this.
Got it.
That's number 1.
Okay. What's number 2?
Number 2, you don't have to buy Azure Stack infrastructure from HPE. It's not free, but you don't have to actually buy the system.
How does that work?
Well, so systems can be purchased if they want or leased, but we've got something called GreenLake Flex Capacity. And what we do is we put a system on the data center floor for the customer and we monitor their usage. So if they use half of the system 1 month, we charge them for half of the system. Next month, if it goes down to a quarter of the system, we charge them for a quarter of the system. So that way they've got the capacity that they need when they need it, but they don't have to write a big check up front. And nobody else has this.
Okay.
Other vendors have lease agreements, but they always go up in cost. With flex capacity, you just pay for what you use on a monthly basis.
Right, which is really neat because from a customer perspective, they're used to paying as you consume for cloud, but with this, it's inclusive of the hardware
exactly
as well.
Right, because it's kind of going backwards. If you've moved into an OpEx model where you only pay for the software you use, it's kind of backwards to say, but you're going to write a check for this hardware day 1.
Right.
Now, we will still do that because lots of customers still want to have a capital expenditure, but the option is there.
Right. Okay, great. So time for one more. What's the 3rd?
I forgot. I'm kidding. The 3rd one is we've got a lot more flexibility when it comes to configurations. And that sounds boring, but it's not. So our major competitor in this market effectively sells t-shirt sizes, small, medium, and large. They haven't really qualified very many processors, so there's not a lot of choice there, very few choices for memory. And the reason that that's a problem is if you build a system that really isn't optimal for the workload or the way it's going to grow, you're going to run out of capacity. And the downside to that is sooner than you want, you're going to have to pay to upgrade the system forklift, bring in additional nodes. That's expensive and it's disruptive. So because HPE is so engineering focused, we build an Azure Stack solution that's exactly tied to the workload requirements. So you can keep that system much longer without outgrowing it. It's going to perform at better performance, and it's also going to cost less at the end.
Right.
So those are the top 3.
Okay, love them. I'd love to hear the rest of them, but we're out of time today. So next time.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.